Edmund Burke quotes: "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Woman is not made to be the admiration of all, but the happiness of one. Reading without reflecting is like eating without digesting. Nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could do only a little. Ambition can creep as well as soar. Rudeness is the weak man's imitation of strength. But what is liberty without wisdom and without virtue? It is the greatest of all possible evils, for it is folly, vice, and madness, without tuition or restraint. Those who know what virtuous liberty is, cannot bear to see it disgraced by incapable heads, on account of their having high-sounding words in their mouths. Our patience will achieve more than our force. Never apologize for showing feeling. When you do so, you apologize for the truth. It is ordained in the eternal constitution of things, that men of intemperate minds cannot be free. Their passions forge their fetters. Whoever undertakes to set himself up as a judge of truth and knowledge is shipwrecked by the laughter of the gods." Preface to 1794. Liberty does not exist in the absence of morality. When bad men combine, the good must associate, else they will fall one by one, an unpitied sacrifice in a contemptible struggle. No power so effectually robs the mind of all its powers of acting and reasoning as fear. Never despair, but if you do, work on in despair. He that wrestles with us strengthens our nerves and sharpens our skill. Our antagonist is our helper. Among a people generally corrupt, liberty cannot long exist. If we command our wealth, we shall be rich and free. If our wealth commands us, we are poor indeed. It is a general popular error to imagine the loudest complainers for the public to be the most anxious for its welfare. There is no safety for honest men except by believing all possible evil of evil men. People will not look forward to posterity who never look backward to their ancestors. Nothing turns out to be so oppressive and unjust as a feeble government. It is not, what a lawyer tells me Edo, but what humanity, reason, and justice tell me I ought to do. They never will love where they ought to love, who do not hate where they ought to hate. Kings will be tyrants by policy when subjects are rebels from principle. The people never give up their liberties but under some delusion. I have not yet lost a feeling of wonder, and of delight, that the delicate motion should reside in all the things around us, revealing itself only to him who looks for it. There is a boundary to men's passions when they act from feelings, but none when they are under the influence of imagination. The greatest gift is a passion for reading. The human mind is often, and I think it is for the most part, in a state neither of pain nor pleasure, which I call a state of indifference. It is our ignorance of things that causes all our admiration and chiefly excites our passions. The greater the power, the more dangerous the abuse. A state without the means of some change, is without the means of its own conservation. The use of force alone is but temporary. It may subdue for a moment, but it does not remove the necessity of subduing again, and a nation is not governed, which is perpetually to be conquered. You will smile here at the consistency of those democratists who, when they are not on their guard, treat the humbler part of the community with the greatest contempt, whilst, at the same time they pretend to make them the depositories of all power. Because half a dozen grasshoppers under a fern make the field ring with their importunate chink, whilst thousands of great cattle, reposed beneath the shadow of the British oak, chew the cud and are silent, Pray do not imagine that those who make the noise are the only inhabitants of the field. Society is a partnership of the dead, the living and the unborn. Wise men will apply their remedies to vices, not to names, to the causes of evil which are permanent, not to occasional organs by which they act, and the transitory modes in which they appear. All that is necessary for evil to succeed is that good men do nothing. For there is in mankind an unfortunate propensity to make themselves, their views and their works, the measure of excellence in everything whatsoever. No man had ever a point of pride that was not injurious to him. The only thing necessary for the continuance of evil is for a good man to do nothing. To make us love our country ought to be lovely. Rage and frenzy will pull down more in half an hour than prudence, deliberation, and foresight can build up in 100 years.